to see you, sir. Karibu sana. Steve Ogolla, constitutional lawyer, good to see you. Leo malala sana bwana, na wewe unakuanga gangari.
No, something happened.
Kulikuwa na mambo mahali. Nimeshangaa bwana wewe jamaa, unakuanga alarm, hata si wiki alarm wewe alarm.
Yeah.
So how's your week?
My week has been hectic, as I think we tried to communicate.
Kwanza ongera bwana, congratulations. You know this guy has finally opened a law firm.
Not finally. No.
Yeah, I knew you always
an office, a big office.
Yes,
a big
office.
office.
Office for now 6 years since I left ICJ Kenya.
Yeah.
But then I was shifting, so it was difficult.
I thought you were in a partnership. Am I Sambaratik?
That was a false start. It's like BBI.
You went into a partnership with a political operative.
I know.
Nasikia pia baba alikuja ku bless the office.
Alikuwa anaenda ile nyingine nilikuwa naona
ilikuwa nini? There was a lot of pomp and ceremony when that law firm was. It was inaugurated.
At least it used to have lunch. I used to see people going to have lunch there.
The office was inaugurated.
Maongera bana. So it means finally we have a drink for Friday. So today's drink is on you. Today's drink is on you. Last week it was on Ekuru. So it's on you.
No, don't just say last. It has always been me.
So today's drink is on Steve Ogolla. So it looks like you're gonna have a good time this Friday.
Why not? It's Friday, as we say in
So any comments you would wish to make about the week, even before you go to the topics of the day?
Well, just to decry the deterioration of decency and common sense in our political elite, among our political elite, I think the bashing and brinkmanship is not inspiring confidence in Kenyans, but also not to spare Kenyans as well. Because again, I think you have an option. When I was watching a clip yesterday where the CS Health, Muteka, was being quoted as having said, if you go to a rally, if a politician goes to a rally and finds that there's no crowd, they probably won't go back. You know, I found Dr. talking about COVID-19 measures and how this political rallies also threaten or maybe increase the spread of COVID-19. But also, there's also the question of what are citizens doing. I mean, honestly, you certainly will not find me in a political rally during this time. And then if I'm going to be in that rally, shall have taken measures to ensure my own safety. I mean, you have to stop this hard mentality that because your favorite political elite or regional kingpin is coming to a particular area, you have to rush there or you have to be mobilized. But I think also, maybe there's the unspoken issue is probably these youth are mobilized using money. Maybe they are paid to go.
Yeah.
So then you have to take chances. You know, is it easy? Would it be better to stay at home and starve, or maybe pick 500 and go to a rally and risk it all? I think it also then speaks to deterioration of seriousness in government. I don't think this government has done enough to create jobs as they had promised. And that's why when you call a rally, you find crowds, you know. People easily, you know, when I watch the rallies, the DP's rally and the Right Honorable Prime Minister rally, they're attended by huge masses and on a working day. I think it's a sad thing. Politicians love crowds. The bigger the crowd, the merrier, the better for them. But also, that those crowds should indicate a certain level of desperation and anxiety within our society that Kenyans are really, really unemployed. They're jobless. The people in charge of making decisions of expansion of the economy, growing the economy, creating jobs, I don't think they're doing a great job in that. Do they have a listening, caring attitude? Certainly no. So that's where we are.
Yeah, but I think Wakili is raising a very fundamental question. I mean, yes, these rallies are huge, but one of the explanations why these rallies are huge is that a lot of Kenyans are actually idle because of joblessness, unemployment, right, which we're talking at about 70% right now, especially among the youthful population, who should really be working hard and building the economy of this country, building the nation. But the leadership knows that. I mean, it's not like they do not know. They know these figures exist. But you see, what is also surprising is that, I mean, let's draw parallels from countries that actually show concern for their citizen. I follow very closely, and I followed very closely the 2020 U.S. election, and I saw how just the wearing of mask became a political issue. Yeah. You know that wearing a mask is not a political statement, but it's actually about your health. Even right now, as we speak, they are debating in Congress about how do we save people who from, I mean, just put food on people's table? How do we save people from being foreclosed by banks and all that kind of thing? This for me speaks about a leadership in a country. What kind of leadership are we seeing in Kenya today in the midst of a pandemic? We know today that even though we have medical covers, very expensive medical covers for some of us who can afford it, but you know, today, because God forbid that you contract COVID-19, you know, it doesn't matter whether you have a 10 million, 15 million medical cover. Medical insurance will tell you you're on your own.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you know, and I'm telling you, they will throw you under the bus in the midst of a pandemic. It's not like your own making. It's not like you are driving on a road and got an accident. This is a global phenomenon. But you can imagine that the leadership is not even talking about it. But instead, what they like is to assemble this huge crowd because they are taking advantage of their vulnerability and their, you know, and their weaknesses. So the question really is that, you know, even in these rallies, I mean, let me bring another point here. Even in these rallies, what honestly are they communicating? Because I've tried to listen. I rarely watch this rally because I think it's just complete nonsense and rubbish. It's a waste of time. I struggle to actually listen. Okay, what is the message? If you want to these rallies in terms of promoting BBI, what is it you're telling about people about BBI? To tell BBI that because you know the majority of them are actually youthful population, and you tell them, oh, in the BBI there is youth fund. That's what I heard Raila say. That's not news. Yes. We already have a youth fund. You know, I mean, I'm struggling to listen to what actually is the message, even from the so-called Tanga or Wheelbarrow Asla Nation. I even struggle to listen. What actually is Ruto communicating to the population, that huge masses, about why they have come? I mean, there has to be a message. You have to say, okay, this is the policy. Of course, there's nothing being communicated because, like I said before, Bitok in your show, there's absolutely nothing new about BBI. Because if you really want to fix the problems of this country, it have already been established. Okay? And right now, the rallies we are seeing is because of two things. Either of BBI or 2022.
Yes.
Period. It has nothing to do with, okay, can we talk about the economy?
Yes. How
How do we revive economy? How do we take our kids back to school? Right now, I know kids are back to school, but the risks is huge. I don't know which country. I was just talking about, you know, I was watching CNN News, I think very late into the night, and now the new COVID variant is becoming the real threat. We are not even talking about it here in Kenya. We have not even closed our borders.
I understand we even have 16 new COVID threats
in Kenya.
Yes.
It's possible. It's possible because we've never stopped flying into the UK. We've never stopped flying into South Africa where this new COVID-19. But you don't hear the leadership of this country speak about those issues, the issues that concern about us as a people. Today, as we speak, I mean, just pick the newspaper today, and I invite the listeners, the viewers, to just pick the newspaper today. Go to the back pages. You see how people are being auctioned, but auctioneers will also tell you we can't even find anybody to buy.
Yeah.
These goods that we are auctioning. Why? Because the economy is in tatters. People have no money. There is no money in their pockets, which is why progressive countries like, say, the US, you know, are talking about, okay, how do we save people from being foreclosed? How do we save people from those who have lost employment? So they're actually debating about getting a certain amount of money, a COVID-19 relief package, to make sure that people can still live decently. You know, people, I mean, look, countries like the US, you see people actually lining up for food, food rations. UK has converted some motels into, COVID-19 centers, in isolation centers. What are we talking about in Kenya? We're talking about BBI, 14 billion we are spending. We have not paid doctors, nurses, clinicians, and all that kind of thing. We're talking about 2022. I mean, we must be a country of very mad people, to be honest.
and you've always say there's something you've always talked about is that, you know, the Wananchis are conduits. They are conduits and all these things. They are the weak link between all these.
No, like Dr. John kept on saying in the previous shows, we are willing slaves. Yeah. You know, we have to do what the master says to us. If the master doesn't say anything, we must think that something is fundamentally wrong with us or with the master. So you have to say, I'm a willing slave. Please enslave me.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a letter even as I throw it back to you. There's a letter that was done by the guys in the industry, in the entertainment industry. And this is what he said: Mr. President, your elder brother Raila and your small brother Ruto all held some serious rallies over the weekend in full supervision of government machinery that included full security, of course, in full contravention of COVID-19 rules. We are amply asking, as your nieces and nephews, we also be allowed to also work at night as wasanii, DJs, waiters, wines and spirit, watu wa nduthi, watu wa mayai, matatus, taxis, watu wa vibanda, watu wa veve, watu wa vibanda.
They're making a very powerful point.
Watu wa veve, watu wa shisha, watu wa koinange, na kila mtu mwenye anapiga shughuli usiku. If your brothers continue doing their thing, sisi kama vijana will also surprise you one of these Fridays, but we will invite you kidogo usikize UB40 ushikishe na sisi kidogo pale kwa vite. Now the question is, why the bias in the way this country is run? We believe there's COVID-19 that needs to be tamed. But then again, we believe that there are some people who should not be breaking the COVID-19 rules. If COVID-19 is no longer with us, why can't we just open up the economy? Because people are suffering. Kenyans are suffering.
Actually, I wish Mutahi Kagwe could tell Kenyans before Wakili jumps in, whether they have relaxed the rules around gathering. Because that's one of the protocols. By the way, last Saturday, I was actually harassed by a cop.
Oh, really?
Because I was leaving, in a restaurant at 9:30. He actually stopped me and refused for me to leave, and insisted he wants to arrest me. At 9:30, I was harassed. But when I look at those crowds, I wonder then where are the policemen to enforce government? And actually I asked the policeman, so what is my offense? He said, you have violated government directives.
Which ones?
Yeah?
Which ones?
I asked which one. It is 9:30 and I want to drive home. He refused. But when I look at those crowds, Bito, let's draw parallels. It's just me and a friend leaving a restaurant at 9:30. 9:30. And I was sure within 10 minutes I'll be in my house. But I'm looking at those crowds. Really, between me and those crowds, who violated government protocols or directives? In the supervision of a policeman.
Well, I think we had a sensational response to COVID-19. You know, the press conferences were something to look forward to, you know, the messaging and all that. But the failure of government to tame or control the spread of COVID-19 is actually embarrassingly large. But the government is caught between a rock and a hard place there, in the sense that it cannot open the economy per se, because it's looking at the global trend, and it doesn't want to be, you know, it cares about its international reputation or reputation abroad. What will other you know, progressive nations think if Kenya opens, you know, when other states are trying to enforce new measures? That is the only reason why, and it's for, you know, they care about the international perspective more than our local reality, because the local reality paints a different picture. Government has actually given up on their own COVID-19. It's no longer, they're no longer enforcing it. I actually stopped tracking the updates. Looking at the rallies by top-ranking government officials, including the president himself, you know, the prime minister and the deputy president, they're attracting huge crowds and their supporters. That kind of posture is not consistent with seriousness in terms of containing. I think even if there's money that is being redirected or maybe still being used, expended in terms of mainstreaming or communicating COVID-19 messages, I think we need to rethink that, because you can't be spending millions of money trying to sensitize the public while you're also desensitizing the public in reality, you know, with their actions. So I think Kenyans must know that insofar as COVID-19 is concerned, you are on your own. Because of internet penetration, you can Google and do your own research. What kind of measures can you take? You know, just to take care of yourself, because this government is least concerned with your worries. It will enhance its responses to COVID-19 based on what the international actors and donors want. If there's a lot of pressure from IMF and World Bank and other donors, they would probably enhance, you know, or tighten measures towards our response towards COVID-19, not because they really believe those measures should translate into real change, but because they want to please some international actors. Locally, the picture is very much different. I think what I see is this. Going forward, if you look at the messaging within this BBI, this rallies, the pro-BBI, anti-BBI, I think it's safe to say, and for me, I totally liberated, the people, what DP Ruto has done, he's managed to capture the imagination of the youth who are really disparate with the message of hope, to the extent that he's been able to disentangle himself from the failures of Jubilee. And I think that is being clever. He shouldn't run away from the failures of Jubilee because he's the deputy president. Truth be said, yeah. So when I look at his posture and I look at the posture of those in government, including the former prime minister, who is, for all practical purposes, in government, yeah, I don't think there's much hope, contrary to what is being sold by BBI proponents and even BBI antagonists. Yeah, there's not much hope in the current political elite. And I want to tell Kenyans, if you cannot look beyond the present leadership, I mean, that's up to you to decide, yeah? You've got to have to now rethink your commitment to the current political leadership. The big five, yeah? The Kalonzo Musyokas, the William Rutos, the Raila Odingas, the Musalia Mudavadis.
Sounds like the animals in the park.
The big five. Yes, the big five. The big five.
The big five.
I think we should lock them somewhere in a zoo so that tourists can come and look at the big five.
I can tell you, until you reach a level where you go beyond ethnic patronage, yeah? Ethnic solidarity, and you start analyzing, Dr. Ekuru's views are very close to my own ideological disposition. And I can tell you, if Kenya was serious in terms of framing solutions, I'm not talking about just to make him happy, because I don't think I'm interested in that kind of posture. But I can tell you, the alternative voices in this country do actually exist. And if Kenyans wanted options, fresh pair of hands, they can always find them. But they don't want to exercise that opportunity. They keep on electing the same set of thieves and thugs and then complaining. I think what Kenyans should do is this. If you decide to make your bed, then just be careful to lie on it, right? If you vacate common sense and you act the same way, then don't rely on common sense thereafter. I don't think the current leadership, looking at the alternative government in waiting, the political opposition, looking at the government, the administration in power, their response to national crisis, I don't think they're really serious to transform this country. It's about time that Kenyans think beyond the current leadership and ask ourselves, who are the alternative voices that we can trust? That maybe then real change will come.
All right, but talk before we jump into the other next. There's something that Wakili has alluded to, which I think for me is very important in the management of this COVID. I mean, of course, in the context of transformative and caring leadership. If you look at, for example, last year, when COVID-19 really hit hard from, say, around February all through to the year, we were at a standstill as a country, and so was the entire world. I mean, flights stopped, anything stopped. One of the things that I keep on asking, we had a budgetary allocation, especially for development and many other things. Why is it that we could not redirect that money, for example, to just mass testing Kenyans and ensuring that there are sufficient measures to shield Kenyans from this pandemic? Where did that money go? And I think this, for me, is a fundamental question we need to ask, even right now.
Even the vaccine, they've said you're going to pay 700.
Even the vaccine. Surely, I mean, you see other countries in the world that really care. They go even to, to places looking for people to make sure they are vaccinated, they are tested and all that. For me, I would have thought that a country such as ours, when we had this budgetary allocation for development projects and all that, which were not ongoing, we could have redirected that money to save humanity. But that never happened. And the other thing that Wakili has alluded to, for me, I slightly differ, Ogolla. I don't think Ruto is giving Kenyans any message of hope. Actually, he's mocking Kenyans. If the wheelbarrow is your symbol, of hope for Kenyans, you're actually mocking Kenyans. I know many Kenyans with degrees, people who are really educated, who are struggling. If you are telling them that your only symbol of hope is that we must give you a wheelbarrow, as it's your lifesaver. Actually, he is mocking Kenyans. There is no hope there. It's like he's telling people, you stay in that state. And let me tell you, this is what those animals you described, the big five, which I think for me we should take them to a museum so that Kenyans can come and just be passing by and see these are the big five who have actually caused us the problem in this country. What those guys have done, they have exploited the vulnerability of Kenyans over time. And what they have consistently done is they have ensured that we are in that state of hopelessness, of vulnerability, and that's what They know. Today, Ogolla, if you and I don't get into the political space and seek leadership, the big five won't care less.
Yeah, sure.
We can make noise here at the tackle, analyze all these things. But for me, what I urge everybody who is really conscious about this country, who wants to save this country, who wants to be the alternative voice, I think we need to get out there and muddy ourselves, because we have to put in ideas. We have to try and change the masses, which these people are actually exploiting. And I keep on saying, I tried it last year, but one with the Punguza Mizigo. At least, and we managed to cause a conversation in the entire country. So these things is possible. It's possible. You don't need to be a big five, actually. As a matter of fact, when I think about the so-called big five, what ideology do they even represent? When I listen to what they say, what do they say, honestly? I don't know. I mean, maybe we can.
That is revolutionary.
Maybe now we need to form the middle five. We can try.
I think so, and I think as many of us as possible should actually come on board. And I remember, I reached out to my former professor of constitutional law, Professor Kibwana, because I see he's in a group of people who are saying that
Linda Katiba, and then there is a Kongamano la Mageuzi. Of course, there are people like us who support Punguza Mizigo and many others. But I really think one of the major problems in this country, Wakili, Steve, is that we have to deal with the perennial challenge of unity in opposition.
Yeah, sure.
Because I do not understand why Kongamano la Mageuzi, Linda Katiba, Punguza Mizigo, and many others cannot come together and give Kenyans that hope. I don't really understand why. I think we are also the problem, And this is what I was telling Professor Kibwana 2 days ago, and I told him, Prof, I think we are the problem. How come we have all agreed that we are not supporting this BBI, we are not supporting the Hustler Nation, because the Hustler Nation now is one of the biggest, criminal enterprises in this country. It is really a criminal enterprise. Let me tell you, Ebu Jaribu Gonga today, a boda driving a car, whatever. It doesn't matter the make of your car. The way those guys assemble and surround you, immediately they see you because you are driving a car, they say you are the dynasty. They are their hustlers.
And also Langata vehicles were actually branded.
But again, now that you guys have brought that in,
they'll beat you up.
And I can
tell you, the policemen are aware of this.
Now that you guys have brought that in, and now just have some very critical thinking.
We really have to.
Let's have some very critical thinking.
Yes.
Now, let's look at Langata. Scenario. There are people who have been the Asla narrative is there and is running. We cannot run away from it. It's already there. Whether it's dangerous or not dangerous, it's already there. Now, there are the people who have been driving the message that this thing is dangerous have been one side of the criminal, because these are all criminal enterprises. The other criminal have been calling these others criminals. Tell me, Steve Ogolla, why the guys on this other camp are being accused of being intolerant and actually fighting people who seem to be having wealth go ahead and actually demonstrate that they are doing it? Don't you think the people who are actually doing those gravity things on people's cars in Langata are the guys from the other criminal enterprise?
No. I think the thing is, I think the hustler narrative has been hijacked by thugs from all sides, and they are the common petty thugs, who are now developing an agenda of disrupting people's lives and livelihoods and actually stealing and vandalizing property. As we head towards the election, you will see where I live. It's very close to Lower Karen, aka Kibera, and the youth will storm into Langata and break into our houses and steal whatever they can pick because of the hustler dynasty narrative. So it has been hijacked by petty thugs. And I think the original promoters of the original idea of hustler have not done enough to desensitize the youth from hijacking the hustler narrative and converting it into a criminal enterprise. But I think there's also credence in the argument that the promoters of that idea actually know that is the only way to break away from the failures of Jubilee. Where the deputy president is a principal actor in that government. I think right now, when you think about the failures of Jubilee administration, you really think about William Ruto. And that's why you see...
Prime Minister about the Uhuru
Yes. I think he's done very well. No, he's done very... See, when you see, I think there was a time Senator Rengo said that Raila needs to get out now of the boardroom and be on the ground and start neutralizing the hustler message. And I think we've seen so much movement towards that, because right now Jubilee failures are now being curiously relatable, attributable to Raila Odinga, who is not in Jubilee, I mean, it defeats common sense to think that Raila could be responsible for Jubilee's failures. I mean, in all honesty, because he doesn't hold official position in government. Yeah. But the principal,
but does he have to hold? Because the way he acts, the way he behaves, he's even now flying Air Force One. I mean, the guy is really
well.
I think actually he's the deputy president or the co-president.
Well, his own conduct also has not helped.
He's a bad man.
No, I get it.
He's a bad man.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he seems to enjoy trappings of power and with a lot of chess cars and all this. So you could see that a lot of power and influence now follows him. You know, post the handshake, and the Hustler team or the Tanga wing of Jubilee have been able to push Raila into the deeper end of Jubilee failures, so that he's now struggling. I think it must have been a very painful admission on the former Prime Minister's part to come out and castigate Jubilee very strongly, because he said that, listen, he also has active political interest, and if he doesn't say that Jubilee has failed to deliver this failed, I'm sure when he sat back to reflect, he probably thought that message antagonized Uhuru more than it probably intended to achieve the effect of neutralizing Tanga movement or narrative, because he wanted the people to say that, listen, Ruto can't run away from the failures of Jubilee. But in so doing, he saw Murkomen coming out very quickly and saying, okay, now you are attacking your brother with whom you are in government, you know. And then I guess there must have been some damage control on the other side. I think what is happening is this. In this hustler dynasty narrative, if we are not careful as a nation, we will see a flare of fresh post-election violence of monumental proportion never seen before. Because you see, it won't now be against the Kikuyu, against the Kalenjin or the Luo, against the Kikuyu, and so on and so forth. It will and you know, because we live in a poor country, you don't just need to step out of your house to find a poor man. But you don't need to go far. And the poor man just needs to step out of his house to find a car to stone, and to vandalize. And now find another poor man. It won't care. He won't care about whether this guy is owned by a Luo or a Kikuyu. I think that's a dangerous narrative. There are Kenyans who are really hardworking.
But you know, no, let's call a spade a spade. You know, if you want to liberate this country, we should just be truthfully honest. The problem I see with this so-called leading politicians in this country, the Uhuru, the Raila, the Rutos, the Kalonzo, Mudavadi, is the commercialization of politics. They must survive. And for them, politics is their business, is their trade. So, and I think Kenyans also must be told the truth. There is no way Ruto can extricate himself from the failures of Jubilee. He cannot. In fact, if you remember the video, the launch of Ziti Jubilee in Kasarani, who was announcing the most promises actually? I think it was Ruto. In 6 months, we'll build an...
And I think Uhuru was clever. I think we wrote it on the card. I think
Uhuru actually made very few announcements, if you recall. It was Ruto who was making the most promises.
I think they trapped him.
I don't know whether they trapped him or not. But now, Kenyans must wake up and say, why should a person who is part of the failure of this country be the guy to beat in 2022? Why? I mean, we are crazy. We are crazy to think that William Ruto now is a clean guy. He is not. He's part of the system.
But politics is quite interesting.
Well, but you know what? Politics, yes. Politics can be interesting. Let's call politics interesting. But let's also be honest. Politics is not necessarily a bad thing. You know, politics is about public life. It's about our policies on education, on health, on employment, on security, on infrastructure, on the things that make us a nation. That's why we have political decisions. Again, I like to draw parallels to countries that really care about their people. If you look at, for example, President Joe Biden today in the US, he's actually promoting the idea that let's have a bipartisan decision making at Congress, because it's about Americans. And he's pushing for that narrative, that it does not matter whether you are a Democrat or a Republican today. Can we have some bipartisan decision making for the sake of the American people? So, but what come back home. Because EKURU AUKOT has come up with a good idea that's pro-Kenyans, let's kill it, let's oppose it, because that's politics. Ours is not even politics, it's staggering. It's culture. It is staggering. It is staggering. I mean, its mediocrity is idiocy at its very best. And I think we just need to call. I mean, look at some of the people whose ideas we follow in this country, or are supposed to chaperone this country in a certain direction. First of all, you even begin to wonder, okay, did they even go to school properly? What are even their levels of education? So how can we say those people are actually even playing any political ideas or propagating any political ideas or ideologies? And that's why I keep on go back to the question I raised earlier. Look at these big political rallies. What message are we getting from these political rallies? Other than to say it is us versus them. It's actually the creation of violence. You know, it's intimidating certain region and certain individuals. Like, okay, I'm not holding Ruto's brief, but let's be honest. Today, if you are opposed to BBI, you are branded Tanga. Even as independent as you are. You know, I've been told I'm part of Tanga. Even in the midst of the fact that I actually promoted a bill that successfully went through IEBC. But just because I'm opposed to BBI, so I'm Tanga. You know, this branding of people. So we never really sit down, we talk as people, sober people who can actually discuss ideas or issues. We discuss about how do I bring down Bitok, how do I bring down Wakili Ogolla, how do I beat him down to pulp so that it's me who stands. This is not even politics. This is thuggery.
All right. Allow me to do the comments briefly, and then when we come back, we look at some of the interesting things that are happening. Ernest Jeria says, our youth are not that employed, but they are so selective that if you tell someone to go for a mujengo or as a security guard, you'll find them refusing. Most of those youths who sit and wait for 200 shillings from Weshemiwa are mostly selective. Not that because you are a Form 1 leaver or a graduate, you select a job. Kazi ni kazi. Haya. Sawa, Irono Yan says good morning to Tackle, good morning to you, Mohamed. Wape Muluka leo ameshikika mahali kidogo, but he should be here next Friday for Sheria Wiki. Kibiego Elvis is tuned in from Kitale. There's a message I was trying to look for here. I've seen some comment here. I really want to see. Obadia live from Tarakani, that is Elvis. Obadia Lele says, with such independent minded like EKURU AUKOT can be given a chance to lead, very sensible. Moa says, greet my party leader and all the panelists. You guys are doing a great job informing people differently. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. All right, so that I don't really go deep into the comments. It's William, how do you expect the government to be serious with COVID-19 measures? And they already made the pandemic a cash cow. In fact, any drop in cases is bad news to them. Either way, any drop in cases is bad news to government. The violence in Githurai, and also I saw something again happened again in Buma at the end of the DP's meeting. What does it mean? Because the other time it happened in Githurai, the guys from ODM came out guns blazing and said these are guys who are hired. So why are the guys yesterday were asked the deputy president? And how does it make you feel about are we getting back to political intolerance? I'll start with you, Ogolla.
I think this is something that does not even require analysis. Fact of the matter is this: the attack on DP Route was a retaliation attack for the embarrassment that the Right Honorable Raila Odinga faced the other day, because politicians can always get mobs to heckle. So I think that was arranged, just like the attack on Raila Odinga was also arranged. It's very unlikely that even if you don't support BBI, you'd want to heckle Raila Odinga. I mean, because usually when he's he's a man who works the crowd, and is unlikely to say things that openly antagonize someone to the extent of incitement, not at this stage. So if you saw those people heckling him, they were actually mobilized to go and heckle him. And I think his supporters and the MPs that he controls in Nairobi retaliated. They organized goons to also go and heckle Ruto to neutralize. So that is just... it's just we don't need to overanalyze that. But what we are now, if left unchecked, they will then escalate. Then now you'll see blood flowing, then you'll see deaths, then you'll see real violence. Right now, it's starting like just, heckling for embarrassment, to neutralize the BBI message, to neutralize the Tanga message. But it can go deeper than that if left unchecked. And that's why we must condemn it, and we must ask the investigative authorities to find out who was this that was hiring this youth to go and heckle Raila Odinga, to go and heckle William Ruto, because they must be attributable or traceable to the two camps. If you can't arrest and arraign these people, then I think there's going to be a failure on the part of investigative agencies to begin to tame the violence before it gets to disparate levels.
Bitok, yesterday I had a very interesting conversation with a very senior police officer in our country. And we ended up discussing about the effect of this so-called Asla narrative and dynasty narrative. And according to them, from a security point of view, they're actually seeing violence in the making. But I challenged him. I told him, but what are you doing as policemen? If you know the people who are actually propagating this narrative, then why are you not summoning them and cautioning them or warning them and telling them, listen, from the way you are talking to your supporters, you are actually making violence. Just look at the way, for example, President Donald Trump in the US was speaking to his supporters. He was inciting them. Now he's being impeached for insurrection. So I was telling him, look at what happens in other countries. If a political or a leader is actually propagating a certain narrative which is dangerous to the country, I think you need to call that leader in. Doesn't matter his position or their position. I mean, you need to caution them and tell them to stop that kind of, because at the end of the day, we expect you as the policemen to actually keep peace, security for all of us. So I'm actually surprised that policemen are actually following this issue, following this debate, and they see the danger in it, but they are doing nothing about it, because they are dealing with Weshimiwa, which is really, for me, a lot of nonsense.
Right. How do you feel we are getting back to political intolerance? Do you think that's what we are getting?
Oh, yeah.
Are you afraid?
Well, I'm afraid. I'm afraid, and I'm concerned as a citizen, and that's why I think we are speaking about this issue today. And I really wish that this country can diversify in terms of political opinion. And like Wakili Hebli said, it is time for us to think about alternative voices, and alternative voices need really to come on board. Because the fact, Bitok, is this, that we, the people who keep on complaining about the problems of this country, have sat on the fence for far too long. We've become curious onlookers. We are fence sitters. We have allowed the political space to be monopolized by a tiny minority of individuals who think it is actually their preserve. I mean, they behave like Kenya is actually their gardens. They hold the title deeds for this country, and therefore, Steve Ogolla comes to try and propagate a certain idea. They say, "Who are you? I mean, where did you come from? Do we know you? You are not a member of this club." So Kenya is like a private members club, and that's where we have reached as a country. And yes, the way they are propagating their political whatever. I mean, I don't even want to call it idea because it's a misnomer. It is very dangerous for all of us. I mean, let me give you an example, Bitok. I'm a student of forced migration, and I took some time to read about forced migration. And I tell you, I visited refugee camps in many countries globally. And in those refugee camps, I have met former lawyers, attorney generals, generals in the army, bankers, professionals. Why did they end up in these refugee camps or as IDPs? Because law and order broke in the country. And this is where, for me, I see the danger in this country. There are some people in Kenya today who, if they don't get into government or leadership, they would rather destroy Kenya and the rest of us. And that's where we are.
All right. Yeah. Let's talk about there's something that happened again in Githurai the same day. Raila Odinga was told he was being taken to Central, so he was taken to Githurai to cut a ribbon.
But Githurai is in Nairobi.
That's where I'm heading to. He was told he was being taken to Central, and he was told to cut a ribbon. Now that was the entry to Mount Kenya. That's the next question. But the first question is, Raila Odinga was being welcomed by Orengo from Siaya, Babu Wino from Embakasi East, originally also from Nyanza. I saw, I think there was again the guy from Western. The only Kikuyu leader or legislator was Maina Kamanda, who is not elected actually. And I want you guys to convince me that Uhuru Kenyatta is not part of this game. I want you to take your time and convince me. Murathe, who has been going to Upper Hill every time to have tea, was not in that meeting. Kina Kanini Kega were not in that meeting.
I don't know what
all these guys were not.
I don't know what Wakili Ogolla will say.
I think I'll start from Wakili. I think there's a lot of political conmanship that's happening. And I want you, Ogolla, I want you to convince me that Uhuru Kenyatta is not part of this script. I want you to convince me.